see my
that takes kids who like
Mm.
because they things get suspended all the time.
So here is our 9 and
Yeah.
9, that's what you mean?
We can talk about that and maybe we can emulate that program or something.
Should we wait another couple minutes?
Yeah, she just went to the restroom.
Okay. On negotiations. On negotiations.
Good, I was,
So I reduced the amount you mean, so it should show that, yeah.
today, I proposed having
Yeah.
our February 21st pay as the retreat
It's just that it is so much updates.
instead of
These things update in the background. So, because they're
no
linked
parking.
to another master sheet, so whenever you are, you just.
How you doing, guys?
Sliding in the home.
Get settled in and we'll start.
Excellent. Right on time.
So,
Okay. Checking myself. Right down there.
You guys all set?
I'm set, yeah, thank you.
Laura, you all set?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the school committee meeting of January 24th. You have before you an agenda. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Comments from the public? Let's move on. Superintendent's report.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. So the first thing on my agenda is to talk about the changes in chapters 37H and 3/4. For those of you that aren't entirely versed in Massachusetts general law around school policy, we're talking about the change in statutory language around student discipline. And the actual legal piece is Massachusetts general law, chapter 71, section 37H and 3/4. So the reason why this change is occurring is because the Department of Education has not been pleased with the results over the last several years of the number of suspensions that have been going on statewide. So I'm going to read you what this language entails based on a legal brief. This language did come out in November, but it's now just becoming more prevalent and there's more discussion going on. So the changes are as such: any principal, headmaster, superintendent, or person acting as a decision maker at a student meeting or hearing when deciding on consequences for the student shall consider ways to re-engage the student in the learning process and shall not suspend or expel a student until alternative remedies have been employed and their use and results documented, following an indirect response to a, hold on, I lost my place here, to an alternative remedies are, to a specific incident or incidences. Unless specific reasons are documented as to why such alternative remedies are unsuitable or counterproductive, and in cases where the student's continued presence in school would pose a specific documentable concern about the infliction of serious bodily injury on other serious harm upon another person while in school. Alternative remedies may include, but shall not be limited to, mediation, conflict resolution, restorative justice, and collaborative problem solving. The principal, headmaster, superintendent, or person acting as a decision maker shall also implement school or district-wide models to re-engage students in the learning process, which shall include but not be limited to positive behavioral interventions and support models and trauma-sensitive learning models, provided, however, that school or district-wide models shall not be considered a direct response to a specific incident. So what this all means, basically, and so much, is that we really need to document everything. We have to try other alternatives to suspension, even though we have these limited exceptions around students who may not be suitable to be in school because they may present there could be infliction of bodily harm on themselves or others. So we have to document before suspension. We have to document after suspension when we re-engage a student back into the schools. And the moral of the story is that we need to keep very, very close attention to our documentation. This does not mean that some of the regular suspensions that are related to felony, related to other pieces, having controlled substances, that has nothing to do with that. That stays the same. But when it comes to things such as, let's say, talking back to a staff member, insubordination, things like that, we have to look at different forms of discipline apart from out-of-school suspension. In-school suspension is still in place, as well as other discipline, but that's the piece. So we are working through this, and we are very lucky to have the support of our legal counsel to assist with this. And I know that our principals and assistant principals have already been putting this into place and documenting everything carefully. So just wanted to keep you up to date on that.
Does anybody have any comments on that?
Okay.
It does mention the students whose education is being disrupted
So
while we're restoring the offender.
So the expectation is that we are not interrupting their education, and that they still have the right to tutoring, to materials, lessons, et cetera, while they are being, if they are being suspended. That hasn't changed. Their right to access their education while on suspension is the same. That has not changed. It is just the documentation procedure as well as how we discipline students. We shouldn't be rushing to suspension, is basically what they're saying. And I believe that over the course of the last several years, they have seen an uptick in suspensions across the state, and this is an out-of-school suspension is what I'm saying, and this is a response to that. So.
I do have a question, Jeanette. Do you see that being way different from what we're already doing?
No, I wouldn't say so, but it means we have to be tighter in our documentation, and that we have to have clear alternative remedies in place so that we don't jump to suspension. We have to have restorative justice, or we have to have collaborative problem-solving opportunities to work with students rather than just, you're out. So we have to be better about that and be very documented in all of the things that we do. If those don't work, let's say we have a student who has been suspended several times, or this is a repeat offense, that is a reason why we would be allowed to suspend it, because we have gone through and tried alternative measures and they have not worked. So as long as we document everything.
So it's not really necessary to change our policy in any
No.
way? Okay.
I have a question to the chair. Over the last 2 to 3 years, how many students has this been applicable to?
I need to go back to look at our results, but we have suspended students for the, for reasonable purposes, for, anything that has happened that is a necessary removal, where we need to have students out of school. I would have to look up our suspension over the course of the years, but we could certainly do that. Anything else? Okay. So next, the Multilingual Parent Advisory Council is organizing an important presentation for all multilingual families to learn about the importance of good school attendance. This really comes in the wake of close to 50 families this season requesting extended vacations to visit relatives in other countries around the Christmas holidays. So this is a problem. We have a lot of families who need and want to return to see family. However, they are gone for an extended period of time. Some of the requests are as long as 3 months. And what we tell them is basically what we are going to also explain in this meeting. Taking your child out of school is a serious problem. This causes a crucial gap in their educational, especially foundational learning experience in school. And if you're going to be out of school for that long of a time, such as 3 months, you need to enroll your child in the school of the location where you are. So we try to give them every opportunity to change their plans. It is difficult. So what we really want to do is be clear with families that their children are at risk for not being promoted for the next grade, and that this can cause a real delay in movement forward with their education. So we hope that having it in the languages of the families and understanding and considering also the cultural aspect, we know that families do put relatives and family life in many cases and in many cultures above education. But this is a state federal law. Children have to be in school. So we're trying our best to support that and to share with families that, we need them to meet us halfway. Maybe we can give them other alternative ideas, have them go back in the summer, not over the Christmas holiday. Plenty of time in the summer. You can send a child back home or go back for a vacation, although I know many families work in the summer here in Nantucket. So we hope to have a meaningful meeting where they can ask questions, have good conversations about this, and kind of move forward. We are still looking for a date. We hope that it'll be February 3rd, but still hoping to settle that date. So, and that's it. And then just some going. Go ahead.
Will you
please.
let us know
Sure.
when the date?
Yes, absolutely. Just some goings on around the district. The high school music teachers put on a great concert last Wednesday with their instrumental ensembles and high school chorus. Students played and sang some challenging music, including an accompaniment of a student singer, which was Natalie Mack, but unfortunately she missed her performance because of illness. So Lane Cutts, the middle school music teacher, came to the rescue and sang in her place. On February 4th and 5th, select choral and instrumental music students will participate in the All Cape Music Festival, which our music teachers explained to us enthusiastically at our last school committee meeting, and we do wish our students a fabulous time at that festival. This Thursday, January 26th, is the NIS Multicultural Literacy Family Night, and that starts at 5:30 p.m. until 6:30 p.m. I am sure that there will be lots of fun activities that showcase the school's multiculturalism and celebrate diversity of the students' backgrounds, their languages, and their traditions. So you are welcome to attend if you wish. And that's what I got.
No additional updates?
Those are the additional updates.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question regarding, going back to the MLPAC, Beth?
Yes.
Is it predominantly families of English language learners that are having extended periods outside, or is it a mix of families?
It's a mix, but I would say predominantly. It's not exclusively, but it is predominantly students of our
Do we
families.
test students once they come back? So if my student's out and then they're enrolled in another school where they are, do we test students when they come back in to see whether they remained on grade level, or how do we determine?
Just the standard tests or assessments that we have, either classroom or benchmark assessments. There's MAP that happens 3 times a year. There's Fontes and Pinnell at the elementary level that picks up on reading progression, but we don't do a specific test to see where they are and if they've stayed on grade level, nor do we chase down families for transcripts from a school off, out of the country. It's challenging to do that, and all we can do is suggest and be as firm as possible about the importance of having their students be in school. And we have some statistics, about how much students lose by being absent a certain number of days and things like that. So we do our best to try and encourage them to have their kids be in school as much as possible. So.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, moving on, presentations and discussions of issues of interest to the committee. Martin?
Good evening. This is the second quarter budget update that was just completed this October 1st to December 31st. Total expenditures for the school, including payroll and operating expenses, are a little over $807,000 over last year, and they are at 47% expended, which is the same as last year. Mostly due to increase in repair and maintenance expenses. We've heard the stories about the vandalism in the schools, but there is a lot of other contractual things and regular repair and maintenance that happens in the schools, as well as utility expense increases. For instance, electricity costs for the period ending in December were $45,000 over what the electricity costs were last year. Fuel and propane are a little over $35,000 over what they were in the previous fiscal year for that period. So we're monitoring those expenses, but that's something that we don't really have much control over. So it's something that we foresee will continue for the rest of the year, very much depending on the weather and how much heat we need to use in the schools. Payroll expenses have increased a little over $347,000. Obviously, those are contractual obligations. They're at 36% expanded as compared to 37% last year. So those are very minimal fluctuations that is just mostly we consider normal. They're not out of the ordinary. The community school, total revenues for the community school came $163,275 over what they were last year. That includes obviously the $50,000 increase in the general fund appropriation that's given to the community school. So program revenues have increased by $113,000, which is a great sign. It's continued recovery for the community school, and we're hopeful and that this will continue for the rest of the year as well. Expenses have increased as well by a little over $151,000. Those are mostly contractual obligations as well as increase in medical insurance costs. As you know, community school is a revolving fund. This absorbs the cost of medical insurance costs. Those have increased by $26,400. Both years, we were lucky enough to purchase vehicles for driver's ed. As you know, the driver's ed program had one Ford Escape, which was purchased in 2017. It started having a lot of repair and maintenance issues. So last year, we purchased a Ford EcoSport, if I'm not mistaken, from Off Island. And this year, we purchased another one from Don Allen. The cost last year was higher because this year we were given a trade-in for the old Escape that we had of $10,000 from Don Allen, for which we're extremely helpful. It was very smooth process, and the cars are being used. We have the driver's instructors now. As you know, we have a large high school, so those two cars will come handy, and we'll avoid the disruptions that have happened in the past when we've had one vehicle. Regardless of how new the vehicle is, when it goes for repair and maintenance, that disrupts obviously the operations, so and the service of driver's ed. Other than that, I want to also thank, and I stand on the board of Nantucket Education Trust. Nantucket Education Trust last year contributed $10,000 towards the purchase of the new driver's ed vehicle, and this year $7,500 from the Nantucket Education Trust and $2,500 from the Community Foundation for Nantucket. So we want to thank those two organizations for the support for those purchases, because this is going to allow for smoother operations of the driver's ed program. School lunch program, the deficit continues to go down. We are at $50,000, a little over $50,000 as of December 31st. As you know, this year we have large reimbursement coming from the federal and for lunches and breakfasts. Federal is $447 per lunch, and breakfast is $226. All meals are free for all students. Although this year we've gone back to the reporting part, and we just underwent an audit from the Department of Education, and we've been presented with some corrections and items that we need to address, and we're submitting a corrective action plan tomorrow for that audit. There wasn't anything major to report. There was a lot of it focused on the food rotation, food space in the kitchens, freezer space. A lot of this has been addressed. A new freezer has been purchased for the high school, but at the time the inspector from DESI spent literally 3 hours between the food service director, myself, and Sarah Kirk. I personally find this time to be insufficient. A lot of these findings would have been avoided because a lot of the information we were never asked to provide the information, so now we're asked in this corrective action plan to upload a bunch of documents, and so for the state to see that we actually have the policies in place, that we have all the manuals that they need, all the backup to invoices. But again, the timing was very short. Usually in the past, I've been part of 2 of those audits from the Department of Education, and they usually last 3 days. I have no idea why this year it was decided that the person arrives at 10:10 in the morning and leaves at 2:30 in the afternoon. So that's not enough. Our auditors, as you know, for the town, when they come to audit, and they come twice actually, they come once in the fall, once in the spring, they usually stay a whole week. So this, and this is a audit that's done every 3 years. We skipped a year because of COVID, and now we're back to doing it. I think the inspector, we've communicated back to her that we would prefer more sufficient time and more meetings so we can address all her questions and concerns, as opposed to this rash kind of audit that doesn't allow. And again, 10:10 is not a very comfortable time for Linda. Linda is short of people. She's been working behind the line. She preps, she does everything. So it's very, very hard for her to walk out of there, go in her office and start coming up with all the support that the person needs. So that I think needs to be addressed between us and the state, and we'll make that note when we respond to these action items. So in the future, they can spend more time with us, and we can provide all the information needed. Otherwise, it's the school lunch program is working great. I mean, we've served a little over $63,000 lunches and a little over 6,900 breakfasts, as opposed to last year 54,000, I'm sorry, lunches and close to 7,600 breakfasts. So lots of numbers. I'm sorry. It becomes very dense at a certain point. But again, it's an audit season. But this is the part I wanted to emphasize, because we like to comply. We knew what information we needed to provide. A lot of the information was provided in advance. But again, a lot of these items just could have been avoided, but it is what it is.
Esmeralda, any questions?
No questions?
Okay, you two are on the food committee. How are the
Yes.
lunches?
We are.
How are the lunches?
From what we understand, I mean, we haven't met recently, but Martin reports out and Beth reports out on that. It's interesting, since we've gone back into the cafeteria, I believe the food the quality's improved. Would that be fair to say?
And the selection as well.
And the selection.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I don't think we're out of the woods, so by far, but I think that the committee, not officially wanting to speak for the committee,
Right.
but I think that we feel that we're on the right path, but we still have a lot of work to do. And Chartwells is open to working with us, which is great.
Okay. Martin? Okay, thank you very much, Martin.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Okay, budget development, schools, and academic departments. Mandy, are you going to lead off?
Hi, so we don't have the PowerPoint or anything? Okay, good. That's excellent. Even better. We all made a deal earlier that these would go pretty quick. So thank you very much for allowing us to be here tonight to talk about our budget. As usual, I like to say thank you for the support that the school committee gives to all of us and what we're doing and the work that we're doing with our students. And I will say that our lunches are a lot better this year than they were last year. Hot lunches and fresh produce and fresh vegetables every day. So I'm happy to see that. When you look through the high school budget, one of the things that you will notice is that we have requested an increase for supplies and teaching resources to $36,000, and that is spread out over the 12 different departments that we have, or academic departments, and that's including our vocational classes. It's been a while since we've actually increased those lines very much, and part of that increase is also due to digital resources and some of the online software that our classes are using. We've requested a world language teacher, and an ESL teacher, primarily due to the increasing numbers at the high school. This year, we're at 590 students. When we add in the new school students for next year, we're anticipating over 600 students at the high school. So we do anticipate more students requesting Spanish. CPS now has a feeder program that will bring students to us to the high school, and our ESL numbers just keep going up. So in order to make sure that we're providing those services, we are requesting another teacher for that department. And we're also looking to grow our nursing program. Right now, our nursing teacher is a .4, and we're looking to increase her to a .6. Next year, this time, I'm hoping that we're saying that we want to increase her to full-time, just because the numbers are exploding. That's what we're anticipating to have happen. If you take a look at the graph that Martin has done, the high school is 19% of the district budget. And so, sounds like a lot, but I don't think it's really that much. And I also just want to mention, I know we have, Ms. Martineau is here to do the presentation on NEASC. We do have our NEASC visit coming up in March. We do incur expenses for the visiting team to come. It should be a team of 6 coming to do our accreditation this year. And because they have to come to the island, we put them up for 3 nights. So between accommodations, meals, and the various items that they need for the 3 days that they're here, that we do incur those expenses through the high school budget as well.
Is that it?
Yes, sir. That's it.
Ms. Morel?
No questions. I do have one question. Mandy, what did you say about CPS and the theater
Feeder.
feeder? Oh, I.
Yes, so they now have, they have a pretty active Spanish.
Oh.
Right, Miss? Yeah, so we're expecting that our numbers, at least for Spanish, will grow.
I see.
Hopefully, in the future, we keep thinking that we're going to try to offer a Portuguese class.
Mhm.
So we're keeping our fingers crossed for that one.
And then the nursing is currently a .6?
It's a .4 right
Okay.
now. What's going to happen next year, we're going to a .6. The nursing 2 will go to a double block class so that they get those clinicals in. And by the time that they finish their clinicals and their double block class, they'll actually be able to sit for a CNA exam. So in order to move forward, we need to have the teacher for an extra time.
It's such an amazing program.
Yeah, and I really suspect that our numbers will continue to grow, and a year from now, we'll be asking to increase her to a full year.
Great, thank you.
Sorry, Dr. Labrie, she'll have to leave the hospital.
Colleen?
No questions, Mandy, thank you.
No questions, sir.
No, I mean, the nursing program, we have an increasing number of homegrown nurses.
Yes,
And that really, nursing is a critical issue.
agreed.
And the hospital ends up paying long money to get travelers.
Yes.
And if we can cut out the travelers and have some homegrown kids, it really is a big plus.
We're trying to help you out there. Last thing I just want to say is thank you to our department leaders for helping to develop our budget and all of the input that they had to create this. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank
Mandy.
you.
Okay, CPS? Mike?
Thank you. I'm Michael Horton, Cyrus Pierce Middle School Principal. I'd like to echo the sentiment that Mandy shared. Thank you in advance of all your support through this process. And she has set me up very well because there's going to be a segue to potential theater feeder. Does that make sense?
So I didn't mishear.
Well, I'm going to use it as a way to tie it all together. On the cover page of our CPS proposal packet, in the top left corner, you will see a picture of our grade 8 cafeteria lunch. And I'd just like to point out how few number of students in that picture are wearing hats or hoods. So I thought that Dr. Lepre would find that fascinating, that even though we are allowing hats and hoods for all students, a very small percentage are actually taking us up on that offer, and how pleasant that climate has been this year. In the top right is our Build Your Own Boat oceanography race in the high school pool that used to be down as part of the Maritime Festival. As Pauline knows, in the past, down at Children's Beach, the last few years, it's been moved into a climate and temperature-controlled environment, being the high school pool. You can see a couple students moving across from the shallow end to the deep end. I believe we had 3 boats make it all the way across. And I know Dr. Bardsley would appreciate me mentioning that, even though she can't be here tonight. In the lower left corner is our growing music program. Lane Cutts is conducting, that's the 7th and 8th grade combined chorus. I think, let me do the quick math, that's close to 130 students in those 2 grades alone. If you were there that night back in December, 6th grade had its own separate performance, because you can't even imagine another grade being present and fit on that stage at the same time. So you can see some numbers there increasing in our music department. And lastly, bottom right, that was one of our selections for our wellness day. Our team of teachers that went to a leadership conference down in Florida early in the year, led by Adrian Lombardi, came back with the idea, hey, let's do a special day on the Thursday before our school vacation for holiday break. And students went off script from their normal schedules and all selected specialized classes. And one of those selections was volleyball. That I actually ended up leading with the assistance of Bianca Santos, one of the setters for the high school varsity program. And it was this really great, active, wonderful vibe throughout the entire day. A lot of exhausted staff at the end, but well worth it. Similar to what Mandy Vasil presented, you can see on the next page that CPS is 14% of the overall school committee budget. You can see how we're just a little bit lower than all 3 other schools. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And as is consistent with a lot of town departments, 97% of that budget is actually payroll. So, in looking at enrollment projections, CPS is actually projected to go down 20 to 30 students next year. Roughly 120, 125 students in the current 5th grade class. A few Lighthouse students will move in from 5th grade to 6th grade at CPS next fall. So let's say that number is 130 or so. There's always a plus or minus a few students who move out of the district end of the year, and a few new students that enroll in late August or over the summer. Our current 8th grade class is the last of the 3 big classes of the bubble that's currently in 10th grade, 9th grade, and 8th grade. So we're promoting a large 8th grade class and getting kind of a more typical standard 130 student class size projected next year in grade 6. Therefore, it is fiscally responsible that we don't have any adds at this point. We don't have any additional requests. It is fascinating that I'm going to show you some things that are happening relative to unfilled positions at the moment and how that translates to being rolled forward. Long story short, our budget is rolled forward for next year. We do have, if you look on page 7, towards the end of the CPS budget pages, for FY23, we had the same 11 special services teaching assistants budget for this year. That was rolled forward from FY22. We are reducing the number of TAs at CPS from 11 to 9. We currently have only 9 TAs working at Cyrus Pierce Middle School. We sit at this moment with 2 unfilled TA positions. With enrollment going down, those 2 positions are actually moving to the high school. Earlier this year, I proposed to Martin and Dr. Hallett, well, since we can't fill those 2 positions, but they're budgeted, can we merge them together into a teaching position, roughly the same amount of money, and save on the health insurance, and get 1 more FTE and add an EL teacher to CPS. We were close to signing a contract with a very skilled, qualified applicant, but in the end, we just couldn't make the deal work relative to housing and some other obstacles. So that position still sits unfilled this year. But as you saw in Mandy Vasil's proposal, her EL number of teachers is going up by 1. So that's really a net zero gain because it's the 2 TA positions from the middle school that have been merged into 1 EL position that's unfilled is moving monetarily up to the high school, if you follow me. Going back, the last thing I want to talk about relative to the segue from the high school, actually there's 2 things I want to talk about, sorry. We actually have 2 Spanish teachers budgeted this year. As many referred to, the increase in Spanish classes and students taking Spanish at Cyrus Pierce Middle School. Currently, 7th graders take Spanish. It's a requirement for 7th graders. It is not a requirement of 8th graders, 6th graders, but we have a plan, as of today, to hire a 2nd Spanish teacher for next year. That's where it's budgeted, the 2 Spanish teachers. That position, that 2nd Spanish position this year is unfilled. Earlier this year, when we couldn't fill that position, I again went to Martin, Dr. Hallett, and said, can we make that a permanent sub position? So at the moment, that position has been filled by a permanent substitute teacher who's filling in as people are absent, people are out sick, people are going to professional development, science conference next 2 days. That is working out very well for us, but that's a 1-year plan for that role because the intention still is to increase the language at Cyrus Pierce Middle School. However, we are just starting all of our scheduling conversations with our staff for the future. We need another encore teacher one way or another for our students to have more elective choices. Today, the plan is Spanish, but it could be theater. It could be culinary. It could be another voc tech option. If you know that the innovation pathway actually started years ago with Kelly Cooney through the oceanography program at Cyrus Pierce Middle School towards marine mechanics. It morphed in COVID into more of a focus on nursing and a lot of the work that Jess Douglas did in designing those courses. Do we want to start nursing even earlier? These are questions that we have for our staff as we go through the budget process. It will be an encore position one way or another, but at the moment it's just budgeted as an additional Spanish position, which is technically unfilled, but filled by a permanent sub. Okay. The last thing I want to say, just a little semantics issue, is currently you'll see just rolled forward that we have 5 core teachers in grade 6, 6 core teachers in grade 7, and 7 core teachers in grade 8. It's still a total of 18 core teachers across the 3 grades. 2 years ago, it was an even 6, 6, and 6. We were in the team model of 4 teachers in one team and 2 teachers on the other team. We have this kind of anomaly situation where we have so many students in grade 8, over 150, but only 100 students in grade 6, that last year we moved a grade 6 teaching position up to grade 8 to bring class size down. We actually have 2 math teachers, 2 science teachers currently in grade 8. As that 8th grade class moves on, promotes to the high school, that 7th teacher in grade 8 will have to be redeployed back to grade 6. So it's 6, 6, and 6, because next year, all 3 of our classes are kind of projected, around 130. The 6th grade went down a little bit, they're coming back up. They're still only like 102 at the moment, but we're gonna go back to a 6, 6, and 6 model next year. So even though it says 5, 6, 7, that has to change next year because our enrollment needs are a little bit different in each grade as we look forward to the future.
Esmeralda?
No questions, thank you.
Laura?
No questions, thank you, Ed.
None for me. Thanks, Mike.
You said that Spanish is going to be required in 7th grade,
Currently it's required.
but if you don't have it in 6th and 8th, isn't that sort of a,
If I may, I can speak to that. So we do need to work on our language programs and how they feed from middle into high school. What would be ideal is to have something in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. It turned out this year that 7th grade somehow was the magic year that got the full year of Spanish. Oceanography kind of put
Yep.
something into the 8th grade, so that was a little trickier. We had to include that. So we hope to be able to find, having that 2nd Spanish teacher, we're going to be able to spread out a little bit more and have either an exploratory in the 6th grade, a little bit more in 7th and 8th. It's a better process. It's better for building the program so that you have a solid feeder program to the high school. Honestly, one language is a little bit skimpy. I would hope that we can eventually move into a second language at the middle school, and certainly another language at the high school, because right now at the high school, we only have Spanish and Latin. We need another language that is not as much as I love Latin and feel that it is a really strong advantage towards academia, we need a language that we can, that's used regularly. That's a world language, a modern language, so. So we'll get there.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, NES. Oh, wait, NIS.
6 years later and you forgot. Hi, I'm Evemarie McNeil, principal of Nantucket Intermediate School, grades 3, 4, and 5. If you wanted to look at the pictures on our cover, I can go through them quickly with you. We can go clockwise from the top left corner. That's one photo of many of our open house night, just showing our engagement with our families, and we look forward to this Thursday night's multicultural literacy night where we get to do some more of that engagement. The next picture shows our amazing art teacher, just held with some students working on some paper mache bowls. The next picture shows a student very excitedly looking at the books during the Scholastic Book Fair, which is one of the responsibilities of our library teacher, putting that together for all of the students. As you go to the bottom, we can go down to the bottom row, over to the left again, and you'll see Rosemary Topham, third grade teacher, and her students. They are opening up their mystery unit by solving a mystery. Their Chromebook cart somehow landed in the main office. I don't know who took it. Wasn't me, but they came to solve the crime of the missing Chromebook cart to prepare for their mystery unit, which is a beloved unit. The next photo shows a picture of students with all their hands raised, readily engaged in a social emotional learning lesson. Our guidance counselors put those on every week for every class. And then finally, we have Dr. Eddie, who you met recently, if you hadn't met him before, and you can see him with one of his ensembles, one of his band ensembles, something he squeezes into our day pretty regularly as his band and orchestra program grow. All right, and then from there, I think we'll just jump to the budget narrative that's provided for you. I want to say thank you so much. The reason it's so skimpy on this page is because we are so grateful for all the support that you have given our school over these last several years, and really heard us when we've expressed our needs, and we are just excited to retain everything that we have currently, including 2 math specialists and 2 literacy specialists and the right number of special educators to support programming for students, in addition to classroom teachers that allow for very reasonable class sizes. So thank you. And as a result, we come tonight just to say that, we wanted to make sure that due to the rising costs of goods and services, that was reflected in the coming budget. And Martin is going to take good care of us in that department, as he examines, and we examine together all of the expenses and how the cost of goods has just simply gone up. And our only ask is that our library teacher go from being 0.8 to full-time to 1.0. We have experienced sort of the demise of our programming with reducing that, and we've gradually been trying to bring it back. And we have a wonderful library teacher this year with Christine. And as you saw when the high school and CPS librarians came and presented to you, that the library can be the heart of the school and really provide so many opportunities for students and the teachers as well, and supporting them. And in the blurb, you can read about all the things we hope to accomplish with having her be there that extra day and all 5 days of the week. And she's done a wonderful job going through our collection, ordering culturally relevant and responsive books, and really getting our kids to love books again and take them out and read them at home and bring them back. It was something that kind of was getting lost. And we look forward, as we move forward, with incorporating more digital literacy learning into our programming and really having the library become that heart of the school. Do you have any
Is-
questions for me?
Esmeralda? Laura? Pauline?
I have a question.
Yes.
Is NIS the only school without a full-time librarian?
I believe at this juncture we are. You're welcome.
No, I think that that's a very important position, and it's long gone from the days of when we were growing up, where the library was sort of static. I mean, it's, I think, an integral part of the school, and I think it's so important to have that extra day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for supporting us with this request.
Okay, now NES.
Yeah, it was.
You can,
Hi.
nice sweater.
Oh, thanks. Kim Kubisch, principal of Nantucket Elementary School. I will have you know that the 4 principals did agree to 2-minute budget presentations. And so I hope that I don't fall to peer pressure and go longer than the 2 minutes. If somebody were here, maybe Kim, you could take his place, set the timer. But I do want to point out, because I see you taking a peek at our pictures, which certainly make budgets real. Top left is the kindergarten group, and it's our We Are Readers Parade, which happens at the end of October, and it's a reading unit where we help kids discover that they really are readers. Right next to that, they are the readers on parade through the school, which is where it starts. And this does happen on October 31st, but these are not Halloween costumes. They are book characters. Next to that, there is the staff in costume, and that is for math night. Down below, bottom left, that just is a snapshot of our library on math night, and what I would like you to blow up and call attention to. Lots of parents and kids working together. Next to that is our school resource officer, Cassie Thompson, and she's doing a presentation in the cafeteria about Halloween safety. And our last picture is our new librarian, Ron Molson, with one of our students, and that was the Friday of our Spirit Week, which is Whaler Day, Whaler Pride. So love the pictures, that makes this real. It's important to mention that Nantucket Elementary School represents 17% of the budget, but I think really importantly for the viewing public, it's critical to note that 98% of that budget is salary. So there is not a ton of money that is overly flexible. In our narrative, I have asked only to take Patricia Harding, who is one of our educational support personnel in the main office, to move her from a 10-month person to a 12-month person. It is critical because we have the second largest student population in our schools. We have the youngest student population. What that means on a day-to-day basis is we have lots of parents who come and drop things off, socks, boots, underwear, clothes, lunch, library books. We have parents coming all day, every day. We also, because we have other offices located at NES, everybody just knows to come to the front door. And that's where the doorbell rings, so we are answering the door for community school, despite the fact that they have their own door with a doorbell. And we are answering the door for the special ed department, despite the fact that they have a door with a doorbell. So that is constant, and I don't know that you get to see it, but certainly our two office ladies have put in for overtime on some occasions, whether it be busing or whatever it was, in order to get their job done. Sometimes they can't do it till it's quiet. So the really wonderful thing about Patricia, and so envious, is she's fluent in 2 languages. She pretends to be fluent in Portuguese as well and can navigate that a little bit. But that has been such a gift in our office because so many people are new to the school district, and she is warm and friendly and speaks these multiple languages and can really help out. And that goes a long way for supporting all of our schools. So our ask is to just move her 0.2 FTE. I will say, because Martin allowed me to, that with an approved budget, with contract negotiations, town appropriations, and some retirement savings, we are hoping to add 1 more reading interventionist to our school. It is not in here, but I'm laying the groundwork that is something we feel strongly about. We currently have 2, and because we want to support building the reading foundation for the youngest learners, we need to really target some students and give them the support that they need so that they'll be ready to go off as readers to NIS. The last thing I wanted to share is certainly my gratitude for your support. We know that NES is a tricky budget to do because we don't know what kindergarten will look like. Currently, we have 80 students who are enrolled for kindergarten based on our 2 registration nights last week. That's January. We still have the rest of the next 8-9 months to go. And so it's always a guessing game, and we have always been supported with the appropriate number of staff to support our kids. And last but not least, I think we owe a huge debt of gratitude to Martin, who keeps track of all of these numbers, and he gives us our last year's budgets and then allows us to do with staff, as Mandy Vasil mentioned. We do it with staff, we do it with school council, to go through everything and move some money around. We're trying to beef up the amount of money we're giving to teachers for general supplies next year. So Martin is truly helpful in moving that all around and taking care of the spreadsheets and sending them back and forth, and then always receptive to our questions. So I think it's really important to acknowledge him.
Esmeralda?
Listen, I'm batting cleanup.
Do you have a question? 80, is that an average for kindergarten registration typically?
Yes, so we have, in my time here, we've been anywhere from 70 to 90. We had it last Wednesday and Thursday was that miserable, rainy, yucky day. Maybe you can't remember because we've had several. But we did not have as many on that second night. We do have some because of our advertising and QR codes, all the technology we're trying to use to help people. We have had some families just directly register that way and not even come to the nights, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Laura?
Is the new librarian, Mr. Molson, related to the automotive teacher?
Yes.
That's nice. So
We
he's
actually have
housing.
a
3 for 1.
A 3 for
Yeah, oh,
1 because
that's
we
great.
have a guidance counselor at
Guidance
the high
counselor
school.
at the high
and
school.
Oh,
Snow.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Win, win,
awesome. Yes.
And he came to us as a college professor,
Wow.
and so we are enjoying watching him and the students in the library, and he's enjoying it. I think it's maybe a little bit more tiring for him than perhaps the college level was. But he's got a grandson, and he's really passionate about this work, so he's been fantastic.
Oh, that's great. And I just want to add that I recognize what a crucial member of the team Patricia is. I mean, she's amazing, so I understand you're wanting to increase.
Thank you.
Holly?
staying with Patricia, maybe I didn't hear correctly, but did you say she pretends to speak Portuguese?
Yes.
You did? Okay, that's what I thought you said, and I was
Probably.
like, okay.
When I say pretends, she's really close. And I think it's because Spanish and Portuguese are close.
Cousins.
But I am always like enthralled just watching her. She does hand motions too, so I think she's got it all going on, trying. But imagine that welcome wagon to
Yeah,
anyone new.
yeah.
And
No,
we're
she's
so grateful.
fabulous. We're
Yeah.
so lucky to have
We are.
Patricia.
Indeed.
Rocky?
Yeah, I want to go on record. I'm in the elementary school twice a week, volunteering. Used to get paid, but I don't anymore. But I've been there, I've been there when someone's come in, English isn't their first language, and to see her put out fires. And this is at least 10 times this year alone. And just to see her come out, and she speaks with her hands too, she right. And 100%, I back that in a minute, I vote right now. Thank you.
We
I
call
agree
her
with
the
everybody.
Spanish principal.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Innovation pathways, no. Oh, special education.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Deb Gately, the Director of Special Services. And I appreciate the opportunity to come forward tonight to talk a little bit about special services. And just a reminder, in terms of special services, a lot of people like to just say, oh, that's special ed. We're special services, which counts for special education, school counseling, social work, and also our school nurses. So we encompass all of those departments, the sub-departments. Again, I guess I'm the winner in terms of the largest percentage of the budget, being at 22% of the school committee budget. And of course, within that 86% of the special services budget is committed to payroll. We have grown as a department over the past 2.5 years with the addition of approved positions, which we are extremely appreciative of. I echo the sentiments of all my colleagues in terms of having not only your support, but the support of Martin and Dr. Hallett to be able to present data and information to substantiate these positions, and they have been very successful. In most recent, in this year alone, the addition of our BCBA and our transition specialist has really made a huge difference. For the next school year, we're looking at approximately 252 students being qualified for special education services. That will be about an increase of 10 students over this year. And really great news is that special services is not asking for any school committed funding for new positions. We currently have positions that are continued to be unfilled this year. They are vacant, and those are 2 district school psychologists, a speech and language pathologist for CPS and NHS, and a physical therapist. In order to maintain legal compliance for our evaluations and service delivery, we have contracted with 10 separate outside providers this year. And as Dr. Hallett has mentioned in the past, most Cape districts and Martha's Vineyard have experienced the need to retain these contracted providers due to vacancies across the state. We will be actively starting our search as of Thursday to fill these positions so that providers are in place by the end of this school year. Once again, we do what we have to do to meet the needs of kids, and it's been a challenge this year, but we're making it happen. And gratefully for connections that continue to be maintained throughout the state, we have a lot of friends of Nantucket that come to the island on a monthly basis. Our current, for our speech pathologist, we have a contracted provider who lives on island, who provides the services directly to CPS, and we have a remote provider for our 10 students at NHS. And again, our physical therapist continues to be contracted through a company. As a department, we continue to fund 3 full-time teaching positions and 4 full-time TA positions using our IDEA grant money. In addition to what you see on the budget, we have an additional $546,000 in grants that we have, and included with that in that is an $83,000 grant for social emotional learning, which is not always guaranteed as renewable. So we do what we can with the programming, but we do have renewable grants through the state and federal government that we very much spend every year. Probably one of the most significant parts of our budget is our out-of-district residential school placements. They're probably our second highest expenditure, next to payroll. The projected cost, because of the increase in out-of-district tuition throughout the state, will be approximately $900,000 for next fiscal year. As part of the state circuit breaker program for fiscal year '23, we're able to recover about $450,000, which will be reappropriated and put in reserve. And we get that state reimbursement by submitting the documentation on what was expended on behalf of the students. As far as our out-of-districts population, there are currently 8 Nantucket Public School students placed at off-island schools, and 1 student will be aging out before the end of the school year. And it's anticipated that we'll start the next school year with 7 students being placed. And just as a comparison, when I started in 2020, there were 11 students at out-of-district placements. So additional support from all of you and the district to bring in additional programming and support staff. We've been able to work on keeping Nantucket kids living in Nantucket. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Esmeralda?
No questions, thank you.
All right.
I just have one. In terms of the grants, how much reporting out do you have to do, for instance, with the social emotional? Is it tied to a curriculum, or you can allocate that as you see fit?
Yeah, typically we design the grants with something in mind. So right now, we're funding a lot of after-school programming for stipends. We have a curriculum that's being purchased for our social workers and school counselors. And it's usually based on, it's a, I want to say not a broad brush, but it's a broad interpretation of what we can spend it on. But it all has to relate to social emotional learning.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a quick question. It is amazing to me, and every time we do this budget presentation, how much you oversee and how much all the different, you're like an octopus. You've got your tentacles out in so many areas. And so much of what you do is you are on a timeline. You are working with the law, right? Making sure you're in compliance. And so I see that in 2022, you had 1.5 assistants, and then you had 2.5. Is that still funded as a 2.5 position? You have
Still
2.5?
funded, sure. Yep.
Funded but not filled.
Correct. Yep,
And that's just because you haven't been able to find the right person.
that's correct.
So there would be an SOS going out saying, so you have 1.5, so you need a full-time
Yeah,
position.
it would be fantastic. We actually, Ms. Vasil and I are engaging in some interviews tomorrow afternoon that I am cautiously optimistic about. And yeah, I mean, to your point, Pauline, what goes in our office, there's a lot of moving pieces that's always going on. And we have been, due to a lot of, different people moving around, we're keeping our head above water, but it's a lot. And as far as meeting the needs for putting the kids first, that's all that we do. But the increase in the state reporting, Martin referred to earlier about the audit that he just experienced, the compliance reporting for tiered focus monitoring, which my colleagues, again, at the school level have really helped out with that. There's constant reporting.
And
That
grant writing and reporting on the
Right,
grants.
and then if at all, which we have a very low percentage, and we got recognized by that by the state, they have a system called problem resolution with special education and IEP. We were scored very high because of our low percentage. We don't have people filing reports against us because we're meeting the needs and addressing issues as they arise, which is fantastic. But that's all, that's the entire department doing it. But there's just there's a lot, so it will be great when we can be fully staffed again.
Well, kudos to you, and a
Thanks.
lot of what you've just said, and I know you won't say it because you won't pat yourself on the back, but it's your leadership.
Oh, thank you.
And I hear that throughout the community, so thank
I
you for the
appreciate
work
hearing
that
that,
you do.
thank you.
and let's get that position filled.
Good job.
Thanks very much.
Dr. Hallett.
This keeps going off.
So I'm going to put on my EL director hat and just share with you briefly, this is going to be briefer than anybody else's presentation. I can have you all beat. Because you recently had a presentation from our wonderful ESL teachers and team leaders. And the picture that you see is not a picture of students, but it is something that is really near and dear to my heart and also to the hearts of our leadership team and our ESL department certainly, is that bilingualism matters. It is incredibly important and incredibly special when we have students that know more than one language. It is an asset, it is not a deficit, and we have to continue to push ourselves, push our teachers, and push the country away from negative thinking about people who do not speak English. We have to embrace and celebrate the fact that they speak more than one language and are learning English as part of being here in our school system. You heard that we made some increases last year to our teaching staff. You will see in our charts that the EL budget is about 1.5 million. It's 5% of the school committee budget, and that our payroll is 96% of the ELL budget. This coming year, we are not asking for additional teachers, although we do have one budgeted, as you've been hearing from middle school and high school, which is wonderful because we are seeing a shift from middle school to high school, and the need is definitely there. So we are pleased to be able to bring on an additional teacher at the high school level for next year. I think that will be very helpful, especially in working with some of our students who are students with limited and interrupted formal education. That is one of the biggest challenges that we have, is when we have students that arrive to us at age 17 and have only finished a 5th grade education. It is very challenging to move them forward and to get them caught up. So we are in the process of looking for ways to put in place and secure important programming towards helping these students reach their potential in the years that they're with us. Apart from that, the one ask that we have for the budget is it comes under ELL, but it is also a central office, and that is we are looking for an additional SEI coach. We have one coach currently, that's Catherine Norton. She explained a little bit about what she does, and she was hired as a 6 through 12 coach. What we have realized this year is that we needed to use her talents exclusively at the high school and to support also the needs of the high school students, which were more than what we had expected. We had hoped to deploy her as a bona fide coach to be working with staff members regularly. Currently, she's working mostly with our courses that are foundational or fundamentals courses, which are for English learners, but in the content areas. So this is math and science in particular. We hope that next year we can bring her back to coaching 6 to 12, or at least a more of a focus just at the high school. So having a second SEI coach, which is a necessity anyway, as our ESL department grows, as our English learners grow in the community, having a second coach that we would look at for grades 3 through 8 will be incredibly instrumental. The more that we can support our teachers to use strategies in their classrooms with English learners and former English learners, it benefits all of us. It benefits classroom teachers, it benefits our general education students, and it benefits, of course, our Ls and Fels. So that is our ask for next year. We'll be looking for a grade 3 to 8 SEI coach, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Marla? Huh?
No questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now the Innovation Pathways Audit Review and Updates.
So if I may, unfortunately, we have to table this presentation to next week, the next meeting, because both of our presenters are ill.
Okay?
We'll move that to our next meeting in February 7th.
Sorry about that.
Okay, now the NESCAC Decennial visit.
everyone. Paige Martineau. I have many roles in the school. I'm standing in front of you as the NEASC coordinator. I'm a high school English teacher, but I am helping to coordinate this visit and all the things that lead up to it. So I'm just going to tell you all a little bit about what NEASC is, and you have a role in the decennial visit, and so I want to talk to you briefly about that. So the information in your packets and what's on the overhead, it all comes from NEASC. So this is all language from their website, and certainly if you are interested in investigating further, there's a lot more information on the website. So I'm just going to say just a few brief things. It stands for New England Association of Schools and Colleges, and if you walk through the Hall of the Whale, as you leave the meeting, you will actually see the banner hanging up there. We are accredited currently, but we're in the process of the reaccreditation. It is a voluntary nonprofit organization that we belong to, and you can see the numbers in the packet. The goal of it is to make sure that we're providing kids with a quality education. And, as a participating school, we send members to visits like the one we're about to experience. So I have been, Stacey Edswald has been, Jen Saradellis has been, I think probably Mandy Vasil has been to schools to participate in this process, so we know what it's like to be on the other side of a visit. So accreditation, again, defined by NEASC, and it's interesting because when I first arrived 20 years ago to the school system, we were just about to undergo this process, and it was very different. We had to sort of put on a dog and pony show, so to speak, for NEASC. We really had to, make sure everything was polished and we were perfect, and it was almost as if that was sort of the end of the process. Whereas now, they look at it as a framework that it's an ongoing cyclical process of identifying needs, setting goals, working towards them, and constantly in a growth mindset, which growth mindset didn't exist as vocabulary 20 years ago when I first arrived at the high school. And NEASC has rethought what accreditation is. So it's not the end of the process that we're in right now, but it's a big part of the cycle. So we're at the decennial visit. Our process, the beginning of the cycle is a self-reflection, which takes a couple of years of really looking at the standards that NEASC gives us. And as a faculty, we spent a good deal of time really looking at ourselves and what we were providing kids with. We wrote a report and experienced a collaborative conference visit where it's a smaller version of what we're about to experience in March. A visiting team came out and they read our report and they came through our school. They looked at classes, they interviewed different stakeholders, and after reading our report and having all those interviews, they wrote their own report and gave us some pointers. And as a result from their report, we developed and implemented a school growth plan, and then COVID came. And just like in every other school, I think, NEASC and this process sort of took, it didn't sort of. It took a back seat as we, dealt with a crisis that education has never dealt with before. And now we're kind of, back in the NEASC process and reminding ourselves of, all the things that we said we were going to do. So this is the point where we are in. Right now, we've been collecting evidence and looking at the collaborative conference visit report and talking about where we are in the process of meeting some of the goals they set for us. And we will be writing a summary report, which we'll submit to the visiting team, and then they come and visit. And again, do something very similar to the collaborative conference visit. They come into classrooms and interview stakeholders and It takes place on March 13th through the 15th. We couldn't have found a better time for them to come out to the island, right in the midst of hate month, right? Hotel Pippa is putting them up. I don't know how many hotels are open at that time, but thank you, Hotel Pippa. And you all are some of the stakeholders that they need to interview. And to be honest with you, I think that it can be done in different ways. They can interview the whole committee. And I think at that point, I don't know what public meeting laws and all that, we have to go into executive session, et cetera. Or they can interview, you know, a select number so that we're not violating any meeting laws. In the collaborative conference visit I went to, the decennial visit I went to, I think we met with 4 of the school committee members, but they didn't make it in a meeting. So I didn't say anything about thinking that we were perhaps violating some public meeting laws, but that's something we'll have to think about depending on what your schedules are. So take a look at your calendars. In the past, I think that oftentimes that meeting can take place before their visit. So it can take place on the Sunday night that they arrive, the team members arrive, or sometime during Monday or Tuesday. So we'll have to look at calendars and determine who is able to be here. Obviously, the more school committee members who are able to interview with them, the better, just because it shows that you're involved in the school, and it sends a message when not many can show up. So by the end of their visit, they will produce the rough draft of the decennial report. They'll meet with the faculty members at the end and talk to them about what they saw and what their findings are, and then they'll finalize it over the course of a month or so, depending on how busy they are, and then it will be made public, and we'll come back and share that report with you as we did with the collaborative conference one. So just if you're wondering, and I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here, but again, it's been a while since the last time I stood up here. It was with Stacy Edswald, who was my co-chair at that point, just to talk about what they're looking at. So you can see in your packet there are 5 standards, and there are a number of elements to those standards. The first standard is learning culture, and in the collaborative conference report, they actually pointed out 2 priority areas under this standard that we needed to work on. The goal, the first one was the school community's professional culture demonstrates a commitment to continuous improvement through the use of research, collaborative learning, innovation, and reflection. This is something that the school pointed out, that we pointed out as a faculty, we felt needs improvement, and they agreed with us, identifying that we need to see an increased spirit of reflection and collaboration among stakeholders, that there are pockets of excellent teaching practice at the school, but they need to see a more consistent and focused approach to improvement, and that the teacher evaluation process needs to be approached with a growth mindset. They actually added a priority area that we didn't suggest after their visit, and this is one of the things that can happen with a team is they discover and see things that are going on in the school, that it's also under standard 1. The goal was the school has an inclusive definition of leadership and provides school leaders with the authority and responsibility to improve student learning. And this, as I said, was an added one that they felt we needed to work on. That we need a redefinition of leadership roles at the school level and a more comprehensive leadership at the district level to lead the work of curriculum instruction and assessment. That there was a lack of ownership of these aspects that they saw, that they needed to see more trust amongst all stakeholders and a shared sense of leadership between our school and district administrators, and that the leaders in the school need to be involved in decision-making and take ownership and collective responsibility for what's happening within the school. Keep in mind that when they came to visit us, we had a totally different slew of administrators. I mean, many of them are no longer here, so a lot has changed since then. And of course, obviously we're missing some pieces at the central office right now that really are going to go into our decennial report. I mean, I think a constant theme tonight has been all the positions that are unfilled. That's going to go into the report. It's certainly affecting the education of our students and the working environment of our schools. Another priority area comes under Standard 2, student learning. And this is one we identified as a staff, and they concurred, and that is around written curriculum. They want to see a written curriculum in a consistent format for all courses. It's something that we work on quite a bit. A lot of our courses have written curriculum, but there's more work to be done. One of the things that they said that they need to see is time for teachers to work together, and specific guidance for new teachers in the way that our curriculum writing works, and more leadership at the district or department level to support teachers in completing this work. That's a theme throughout what they found in that collaborative conference visit. A second priority area that they're looking for, and they're gonna wanna see growth in this when they come out here in this visit, is also under student learning. The goal is instructional practices are designed to meet the learning needs of each student. And what they saw was a lot of good things happening in the classroom, a lot of use of formative assessment, well-structured lessons. They wanted to see more differentiation or personalization of learning, and so that's something they'll be looking for as they visit classrooms this time around. Standard 3, professional practices. The goal that we didn't quite meet is collaborative structures and processes support the coordination and implementation of curriculum. And again, one of the things that they identified was an issue with effective leaders and developing leaders, making sure that there are dedicated blocks of time for teachers to meet with colleagues, especially those that teach the same course. And then finally, in terms of priority areas, Standard 5, learning resources, and that's about school building and facilities. The issue they identified was the lack of science classrooms, and obviously we have addressed that, but clearly we with the bubble coming through, we now have even more space issues. So, but we did add the 2 science classrooms on the main floor with the sinks. So that was part of our response to the report. All right, so I'm not going to go crazy, but I did include some of the major themes that they're looking for, and what they call the 4 C's, our capacity for growth. I think that if you look at the capacity for growth, the idea throughout all of these standards, again, is a commitment to reflecting on what we're doing, being true about where we need to grow, identifying what we need to do in order to grow, and then, doing the work to grow. And they want to see that we're a work in progress. They're not going to come in here and ding us for things that are out of our control. And there's certainly a lot right now in terms of staffing, and I think COVID that has thrown us for a loop. But I will be honest with them and honest about the good things that we've done, as well as the areas where we need to grow. So you'll be hearing from me and Mrs. Vasil in terms of scheduling, and the more of you who can participate, the better. The other thing is, we'd also love to see you walk through the hallways of Nantucket High, just to, if you haven't been here in a little while, to maybe visit a classroom or 2, talk to some teachers, see what's going on. I know that you get reports regularly, but it would be great for you to come through the building, just so that when they ask you questions, you're able to maybe supply them with some good personal stories of the kids that you ran into, and whatever the great music lesson that you saw or what have you. It always helps to demonstrate that. Anyway, that's it. Any questions?
Ms. Marlowe?
No questions at the moment.
Laura?
How long have we been a member, Paige, of this organization?
So we actually stepped away from NEASC for a number of years, along with a number of schools. I can't remember how long we stepped away. It must have been 3 or 4 years. Maybe Jen can remember better than I. There was a movement that caused them to change the process, and the way that I describe now as having sort of a growth mindset, the cycle. A lot of schools stepped away from the accreditation process at that time. Once they fixed that issue, a number of schools jumped back in, and that's when we went through our self-reflection process in the collaborative conference. But we were a member when I entered. I don't know how long before that.
Yeah, it's been close to
The last time we were accredited, I was at the middle school, so that was 9 years ago, so I know that it's been at least 10 years. At that time, you have to realize that DESE didn't have the strict guidelines that it does now, so it was very important for schools to be NEASC accredited. Colleges were asking, are you coming from the accredited high school? DESE now has lots and lots and lots of parameters and structure in place that parallels the NEASC process and expecting schools to follow certain standards, so they're much more aligned now. We stepped away from it, not that we didn't want to be accredited, but Dr. Bucky at the time knew this change was coming, and he didn't want to go through the process under the old program. He was waiting for the new program to be rolled out, and then once it was, and it's much, much better now than it was before, we jumped back in.
So you still feel like it's an important piece to have that accreditation, or is it more the accountability?
My personal opinion, I question now how important it is, given that the Department of Ed, it has such structure in place and such expectation. I'm just now starting to ask the question, is it still as important as it was, given where DESE is at this time? Is it something colleges are still looking for when they're accepting kids? Those are the questions I think we should start to ask to see, is it worth continuing this process? How does it help our kids? Is it necessary? So those are just questions we're just now starting, Mrs. Vasil as well, are starting to ask. Because it is a very laborious process, but
Yeah.
also important in making sure that schools are of a certain standard, so, which DESE is now requiring anyway.
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you,
All
Paige.
right.
No, no comment, thank you.
I go back to Suzanne Gardner in your role. It did seem at the end that it was becoming a lot of chasing your tail and not accomplishing much. So I'll be interested to see under this new format how it works.
I think that, you know, what the process encourages us to do is important for all schools to do. So I think anything that asks you to look deeply at how you're educating kids and how you're serving kids is valuable. And to be honest with you, I mean, DESE may have, you know, better protocols now, but I don't know of any other process that requires you to look as deeply as NEASC does at what you're doing. I think the laborious part of it is that there's some things that they ask you to do that maybe aren't as valuable as other pieces. So, but I do think there's something to get out of it as a staff, you know, really looking at, you know, what it is that we're doing, and to have a team come in and see what we do. That sometimes having complete outsiders come in and see what we're doing is, you know, it's interesting to see through their eyes. Oftentimes I think we're harder on ourselves than they are. I mean, it's great to hear the wonderful things that they see after being in classrooms all day long. So I know as a team member to another school, it was a pretty invaluable process just to see. I went to Falmouth, and there were some really cool things going on in that school, and you really can get a sense of that even just being there for a couple of days. So thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Paige.
very much.
If I may, I just have one comment and I guess a question, which is, I'm really curious to see how the pandemic plays into this, and how you know, how their standards and what they're looking for may have shifted based on what has happened to us over the last 3 years. Because I can only imagine that schools going through this now are, you know, have had, you know, it's been so much a part of their last 3 years, and it's affected learning so deeply. I'm just curious to know where things are going to go. I mean, no, I'm not asking for an answer tonight. I'm just really curious to see where we'll land. So.
Thank you, Paige.
Thanks, Paige.
Okay, committee discussion and votes to be taken. Vote to approve fundraising check from Hayward Photography to the CPS in the amount of $1,425.90. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve a donation from the MIT Club of Cape Cod to NHS Science Department in the amount of $500.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
A vote to approve the donation of string instruments from Lighthouse Education and Coaching LLC to Nantucket Intermediate School in the amount of $4,397.78.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A vote to approve the donation from the Town of Nantucket Health and Human Services Rural Health Grant to Nantucket Community School Early Childhood Center in the amount of $5,000.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A vote to approve the January 10th, 2023 meeting minutes. Can I have a motion to approve?
I wasn't there.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Transfers and invoices.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Subcommittee work group report.
We had a,
Oh,
policy, yes, our policy meeting.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
So-
You know why? It was Zoom. And thanks to Kimberly, you don't have to walk around with a book, it's all on the computer.
That is really
And we went
fantastic.
through that probably in the 10th time. It was just a cave, right?
Yes, we have more to follow, but yes, we did get a lot done, for sure.
Sure did.
How about Cape Cod Collaborative?
So I was unable to attend because I'm in rehearsal. So
Okay.
I unfortunately was not there, but I will be this coming month.
I do know that they have a legislative breakfast coming up soon. Are you attending that? I think it's February 3rd.
Oh, I will be able to, absolutely, yes.
So just look out.
Oh,
for that.
good,
That's
I'll
fine.
check my emails.
Anything else, the food group?
No, we did our update on our food group.
Yes, and then negotiations are still continuing, so
Yes.
those are our committees.
So Natalie isn't here.
So Natalie's not here, and she did want to mention that the Cape and Islands Festival, which I also mentioned in my report, often we overlap unnecessarily, but she wanted to share that, and also that the Nantucket Golf Club Scholar Program has started. The interviews were starting Monday, and they'll have their second round of interviews this coming Monday, so.
Do we know how many students applied?
I don't. Mandy might know. Is it 20?
31.
31?
31, thank you.
Great. And then the vocational scholarship is still ongoing, right? You can still apply?
They can still apply. I believe it's the end of the month, or the first week of February, they have to turn that application in.
Do you know, sorry, can I just ask if, when the scholarship applications for, all students, and when is that? The deadlines for the scholarships, not the vocational, but we're in scholarship season, right? So,
We are.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So that information will go out on the website. It's usually the first week of April, isn't it? So they usually post everything the first week of April, and then I think it's by the end of April that they have to turn in everything, the students do.
okay,
So for our, local scholarships, it's usually the month of April.
great. Thank you.
Check with the expert, Ms. Fasaro, before she.
Yes, no, I heard that.
What is it? May 1st is the deadline? Okay, so thank you, May 1st.
Because Mrs. Fasaro did reach out to me at our house to ask if the school and our house could work together and maybe host a parent or student night there so that we can help with scholarship applications, et cetera, just so that we can help the school out.
It is a lot of work for them to put everything together for those scholarships, so I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah, so I just thank you for that, because I hadn't gotten back to Ms. Fasaro
And
yet.
If I may just mention one thing, we just had, speaking of the Cape and Islands music festivals, we just had one of our students qualify for the state festival. It's Kid Puccino.
Nice,
And so we're pretty excited about that.
good for them, that's wonderful. I have a question to add on or to ask the committee if we wanted to have a workshop or a discussion. And I had sent Beth an email last week, I think around the dark skies, the warrant that's coming out or is being
I apologize, I never received an email from you on that, I'll have to look.
So there's the Dark Skies group that is putting a warrant out, a warrant for town meeting. And I know we've had some back and forth. I think
Yes.
just sent emails back. So I just wondered as a school committee whether we wanted to have a discussion around what that possibly could mean for our buildings or not. I mean, I don't know if it is something we want to, but
We certainly can add that to our workshop meeting on the 2nd, if you'd like, because we have a
I
workshop
think it's a
coming up
good, I
anyway.
think it would be good for us to just understand
Right.
what is possibly going forward and what that would mean in terms of changing any of our lighting in the schools, et cetera.
I will say Diane O'Neill is not here, but if she were here, she would strongly advise us against changing our lighting. It is a security and safety issue. If we have dark schools, dark sidewalks during the evening, we could have some serious issues. And some of the requests that are being put out by this group would incur immense costs because we would have to remove lighting and shorten lighting, and then we wouldn't have the capacity for our cameras, our security cameras, where they currently are. So we can certainly go through this at our workshop, and
I
anybody's
think that's an
invited to
important
that.
conversation for all of us to have.
Absolutely. So I will request that be on the agenda for the workshop.
Thank you.
Okay.
Agenda for the next meeting?
I hope you have the newest agenda for the Horizon. Things have changed a little bit since the last, the.
Printing?
Yeah, thank you. Since the last printing.
I'll help you there.
Thank you for your help. So February 2nd, we have our workshop meeting. I will add Dark Skies to that and discussion about that. On February 7th, we have Project 351, which is our middle school service group, and you did ask about that. This is the group that does some volunteering, and they have been. It's really a special group. We won a grant this year, and they are in a they're in a great program and learning quite a bit. And I think Pam Pellegrino, who's the person who has worked together with the middle school, Adrian Lombardi and Tracy Malu and Mike Horton, I think they'll have a lot to share there. We will, the high school will present their program of study, and then we will have our innovation pathways audit and review and updates, and we hope to approve the FY24 budget at that meeting. We would like to plan the budget hearing a half an hour prior to our regularly scheduled school committee at 6 o'clock. So that would mean that the budget hearing would go at 5:30.
Public hearing.
Yeah, public hearing. So if that's acceptable and amenable and you're able to be here, at least a quorum as best we can for that, that would be great.
The only question I'd have on that, is there any timeline that we need to wait after the public hearing or no? For us to
For
go
the
ahead and vote, yeah.
I don't believe so. We can certainly check that before. Usually the hearing is when there are questions
Right.
that can be asked, et cetera. So if there are no questions, Martin might know here. Please get us.
The public hearing is for the public, obviously, to
Right.
ask questions. I don't think a vote needs to be taken. The vote on the appropriation that goes in Article 8 we'll do at a later date prior to town meeting. And
Oh,
that's-
okay, so it won't be that night.
No, that's not the
That's,
vote.
sorry, I
on the
misunderstood.
Final number, this is just the presentation that we do with Superintendent Hallett and
Oh, no,
everybody,
it says vote.
all the school principals and the directors. So we are here for an open meeting if there are people that want to ask questions about the budget.
But then following that hearing, we've got it on the agenda that we would vote that night.
It doesn't necessarily need to happen that night.
Okay,
We can,
Again, that can be postponed, I think, for a future date, because there's still some negotiations going with them.
the only reason I ask that is for the public hearing, I know it's for us to hear, but let's say there's something that comes out that we needed to have a discussion or make any, I mean, I don't imagine that, but I just think if it's a half hour before and then we go right into voting, that's not allowing for that
not a problem.
possibility, that's all.
It's, again, sometimes things are put in here as placeholders.
Yeah,
So,
no, I got it.
Happy to move that to a
Okay.
later date, not a problem.
Thank you.
We did have a regularly scheduled meeting on February 21st, but due to the fact that we have quite a few meetings, and we also have a financial committee meeting, or committee meeting that eventually needs to be scheduled. My question is, could we potentially have our mid-year school committee retreat on that day, on the 21st, in lieu of a full
I saw that
meeting?
in your, it works
Update.
personally for me.
Okay. So
The
that
February
means we would
25th,
have
yeah.
one official meeting. I did speak with Martin and Veronica around transfers and invoices, whether or not any votes had to be done. But because we have also a school vacation week, things are going to be a little quiet. So
Right.
if everyone agrees, then
That
we can
works for
certainly,
me, yeah.
do that on the 21st in lieu of a full meeting.
Mhm.
So, great, thank you. And then March 7th, we've got some other things. So, thanks.
It's 2 months away. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did you see my email today?
Yes.
I'd love to know more about the women's ball.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're talking
Yeah.
women's ball, yeah?
Oh,
Let me show you the email. Okay.
It did.
While you're finding that, Laura, I'll reach out to you and we'll find a time to meet.
Yes,
On
that'd be
a nice
fine.
day.
Yeah, on a nice day, but if we can't find one, coffee is
Yes,
good.
great, perfect. And do you want to schedule a time for coffee or something, just to catch up? I just wanted to have, and same for you, Esmeralda, I haven't seen you in a while. Could we find a time for a little one-on-one?
Yes.
I know how busy you are.
This week, next week?
No, it can be later. I just want to have a chance to see
I
everybody.
gotta look at my schedule.
Councilman Rhoda,
Bye, everyone. Thank you, bye-bye.
I think I've seen some emails from you about dark skies.
Yeah, I've been sending them to you. There's really not,
Didn't they come on the property and do those?
they
check it
did.
out
It's-
Legally?
They did, yes, and unfortunately, I mean, as I'm a proponent of having a wonderfully beautiful dark sky, but it is really a safety issue, so.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Thank you. This could be interesting, yeah. See if we could, could this be something that they could do with our house, just as, I just heard.
I think it would be. I mean, this is Rhoda Wyman. She was very involved with Catherine.
Okay.
Catherine who got her first B+ ever. She was heartbroken.
It's